This may be a bit of news, or at the very least, it may be a trial balloon. I'm not sure which one it is yet. Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard has gotten a lot of, let's say, cred from lefties. I mean, some of the cred has come from her bucking the party, whether it was joining in with Bernie Sanders against Hillary Clinton with all the flack that she got for that, if you look at those emails, whether that was going to Syria, and while going to Syria, coming back telling Jake Tapper, Jake, we're supporting terrorists over there, we need to stop supporting the terrorists, after Jake Tapper was trying to hit her in the knees, completely unraveling Jake Tapper's attack on this front. And being willing to say, look, we don't know if they were chemical weapons that were used. The president of the United States fired an illegal missile strike attacking a country where he didn't even have an investigation for. I nearly fell out my chair and rejoiced on the ground. I was like, yes, that's where I was when I heard that. When she had General Mattis, and she was pointing to him, making the point that what you're doing is illegal. And he's like, it's complicated. It's not that complicated. It's illegal. She got a ton of cred from lefties for this stuff. I can't necessarily tell you each and every domestic policy that Tulsi Gabbard has put forth, so don't misunderstand me. I'm not going and doing this rah-rah across the board. But from this angle, I liked a lot. BuzzFeed is reporting that Tulsi Gabbard is going to announce whether or not she's going to run for president in the coming week, meaning it's somewhat of an imminent thing. Now, this could, again, be a trial balloon, or this could be people trying to push her to run. I'm not quite sure which one it is, but they're saying they have sources that are telling them this. BuzzFeed has broken stories, so maybe yes, maybe no, but at the very least, it will be an interesting run. One of the things that Bernie Sanders has made the point of, that he determines whether or not he's going to run based on who's going to be in the field and whether or not they can carry forth his agenda in an honest, straightforward way, and whether or not they can beat Donald Trump. Tulsi Gabbard can beat Donald Trump. At least I think so. I could be wrong, but Tulsi Gabbard could probably beat Donald Trump. That said, if both of them get into the race, that would be a fascinating dynamic with those two in the race. But nevertheless, we don't know this. This is all conjecture at this point, so take it as what it is. They are just saying, however, that sources close to the campaign are trying to create their infrastructure that would be necessary for a presidential run, which is, if you're creating an infrastructure for a presidential run, you're probably considering a presidential run. Even on Joe Rogan, and I would play the clip, but if I play the clip, Joe Rogan will put me a copyright strike. He tends to be pretty aggressive with that stuff. But needless to say, on Joe Rogan, she made the point that people were asking her to run, and that in people asking her to run, she was considering a presidential run. The last guy from Hawaii that ran actually won the race. So maybe so. Let's take a look at the article real quick. I'm not going to keep this one long because there's not a lot of meat on this one. It's just conjecture. Tulsi Gabbard is moving towards an unconventional presidential campaign. Her fans see Bernie 2.0. I wouldn't go that far. I don't know if she's Bernie 2.0. I don't know all of the other policies that she's pushing. From a military standpoint, yes, the non-interventionist thing. Yes, I like being able to buck the trend and go against the press on this military stuff. Yes, I like. And having the decency to back Sanders, even when politically it was risky, and she took a hit for it. I mean, granted, it ended up being good in the end, but at the time, she didn't know that. Again, a plus. Those are bonuses for me. I've said before, I'd support Tulsi Gabbard presidency, but again, I don't necessarily know all of the details of Tulsi Gabbard. I've even heard Dore, mention Tulsi Gabbard saying that he would want her to run. Tulsi Gabbard is known insofar as she is for bucking the party. She criticized President Obama's handling of ISIS. She was widely criticized for meeting with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, who has been accused by the United States government of using chemical weapons against his own people, when she traveled to Syria for a fact-finding visit in 2017. That is a very long sentence. She rebuked the Democratic Party, the Democratic National Committee handling of the 2016 presidential primary, and then publicly resigned as vice chair to endorse Bernie fucking Sanders. Now, nearly 3 years later, the Democratic member of Congress from Hawaii is poised to try to convince the Democratic primary voters that she should turn the page on just status quo politics but on the Vermont senator whom she championed. Oh, drama. Gabbard has acknowledged that she is seriously considering a presidential bid. Her team is actively seeking to staff senior roles on a potential presidential campaign, according to a person briefed on the outreach, has indicated that an announcement could come as soon as this week. What day is this? 17th, December 17th. All right, I haven't heard an announcement yet. She's in discussions with the Des Moines-based Asian Latino Coalition about organizing an event with sometime in the first 2 weeks of January. She did several events in New Hampshire earlier this month on the heels of a trip before the 2018 election. She also made the trip to Nevada the week to hit the state bingo. What? To hit the state bingo with a trip. Okay, maybe I misread something. She also made a trip to Nevada this week, the week before the election, to connect with quote-unquote progressive candidates and causes, and was set to hit early state bingo with a trip to South Carolina, but that trip was scotched due to plane trouble. Look, a lot of this, again, gets to be conjecture, but I know a lot of my audience like Tulsi Gabbard, and from the standpoint of her military policy and the support of Sanders, I also like Tulsi Gabbard. It rubbed off. So this is just a heads up. Tulsi Gabbard is considering a presidential run, and the announcement is imminent. It's supposed to be this week, maybe next week, but apparently it's coming up. So I'll leave it here. Dubong is not 5 a.m. It is 2:26 p.m., sir. It's 2:26 p.m. where I am. I still think Bernie should be the top in her MVP. Yes. So one of the things they talk about in this story, they get down to the point of talking about Sanders and her running together. And they make the point that this may be a different presidential race if these two are in it, and they may actually work in collaboration for it. But again, this is conjecture. There's a lot of they think built into this. There's an aspect of this that's news in the sense that there's apparently people in the campaign that's putting out feelers, making note that she's talking about running, and that she's organizing her structure if she does run, meaning the political infrastructure. But everything else is just conjecture. You know, it's funny. They also make this thing of she checks all the boxes. She's had military, like right here. I call her Bernie 2.0, Alan Moran, the administrator for centrist for Tulsi Gabbard, a candidate who shares his values without some of the baggage and bad feelings that have come from a run in a fraught presidential primary. He's an old white dude. Well, Tulsi isn't. He skipped military service. Well, Tulsi is a veteran, he said. Again, I don't know what that has to do with the price of tea in China. What are his policies? And do you believe that he's going to implement those policies, yes or no? I don't know about Tulsi's policies, and nor do I know what she's going to do when she gets in that office. I have a fair idea of what Sanders wants to implement, because Sanders tells you, and he would tell you for 20 minutes if you just stand there and let him. So let's be fair. Him being old and white, I don't know what that has to do with the price of tea in China. That comes across as racist and ageist. Just saying. Ray, a 48-year-old Sanders supporter who worked in the precinct captain for his campaign in Massachusetts, launched the Run Tulsi Run Facebook group in April 2016. But he told BuzzFeed, I was like fleshing out the idea in my head the day that she resigned from the DNC. I felt like it would be the best candidate to take the mantle from Bernie and would be the best candidate to run in 2020, he explained. What are her policies? I don't know her policies. Like, Tulsi is skewed taking campaign PAC money. That was one of the things she did. Again, and some of this stuff is, you can kind of see where she's mulling in her head to run. But there's no doubt in my mind on this. Between the two, Sanders. Nobody knows who Tulsi Gabbard is outside of lefty circles, and she would have to ingratiate herself to a large group of people who have no idea who she is. Is it possible? Yes. But right now, Bernie Sanders is the top on that list. So she could be his VP, but that's if Sanders runs, let's put that shit in perspective. Just saying. One person, I have an idea of what they stand for. The other person, She took some really good positions, yes. Do I know what's in her? No. There's a difference in those things. So I'll leave this here. Like I said, I didn't want this one to stay too long. I hope Bernie runs. No one's better. Upstate Raider. Same here. Same here. John Hill. Bernie the sheepdog would not run. Oh, God. Bernie the sheepdog. And you know what's sad? I've done plenty of videos calling Bernie Sanders a sheepdog, so I can't get mad at that. Fair enough. Fair enough. AJC, I agree on it being racist and ageist. Yeah, it's extremely racist. He's an old white dude. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? I don't understand that. What does that have to do with anything? Tulsi should serve as Secretary of State under the President Sanders, and then use that as a platform to launch her run after 8 years. Yeah. Needless to say, Tulsi Gabbard is considering a presidential run, according to BuzzFeed. If Sanders doesn't run, yes, Tulsi gets my support. Because I don't know who else is going to be in a race that I would support. So I'll leave it at that. All right, guys. If you enjoyed the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Also, they have attacked Tulsi hard with Syria. People still believe the chemical. Yes, but she was able to stand strong on that. Like, she ate Jake Tapper alive in that interview. Did you see that interview? Like, Jake Tapper was trying to hit her in the knees, talking about, oh my God, Bashar al-Assad is a butcher. How did you go meet with the butcher? Now, forget this fact that they're perfectly okay with Saudi Arabia. What's his name? Bin Salman has been out there murdering Yemenis left and right for the past 2 years. They were okay with talking to Obama when he's out there with those king of drone strikes. They were okay with talking to George Bush at the funeral, giving him, they thought it was a sweet moment when Michelle Obama gave a war criminal a piece of candy. But her having a conversation with Bashar al-Assad, it's all of a sudden this mind-blowing thing. Fuck them. She was doing God's work exposing that on national television. Now, whether or not they can attack her on that, or whether or not she can stand strong, that's a question. But that will be something she would have to deal with from the standpoint of a presidential primary run. They will hit her on that, though. You're right. They will hit her on that. Bernie, Tulsi, Turney, the only 3 Democrats I would vote for. Right here. Agreed. I agree with that statement. Darren Levy. All right. I will end this here. You all have a good one. I have one more up before I leave out of here. Yesterday, damn it, I'm going to have to cut this video. Yesterday, I was reading a story where the people were talking about the Green New Deal. And the argument that was being made had to do with that the Green New Deal is being aped from the Green Party's Green New Deal, and that in aping it, they're changing the content of it. So even though they're calling it the Green New Deal, it's not the same Green New Deal that the Green Party was pushing. The Democratic Party appropriated it using Ocasio-Cortez to make that appropriation while simultaneously ripping the guts out of what they were putting forth. After reading it, they're right. Ultimately, what she's talking about is a committee to look over how to do X with a certain degree of Republicans and Democrats that are part of the process. Here's the thing. If you're depending on a certain number of Republicans and Democrats, especially corporate Democrats, to get on board, you are insane. You are utterly and entirely insane. And whatever bill that comes up, an ugly duckling of a bill that goes through, it's not going to give you the bang for your buck that tries to address the climate change thing. I understand that the Sunrise group, that Sunrise movement that is pushing for this, and they are passionate about it, as young kids are passionate about things, to try to push the Green New Deal. They need to make sure that it gets the bang for the buck that they expect it to get, and not necessarily get mushed up in the workings of Congress, this kind of sausage-making process. Just saying. The Green Party's Green New Deal was pretty specific. Ocasio's less so. So I want to do that story. It's by Mint Press. It was actually a good one. So I'll talk about that next. All right, guys. You all have a good one.